Yeah.
Welcome for another week, guys. We are on episode 9, and
Uh,
we are continuing off of how our last episode ended. And we're going to talk about back training today.
yes, sir. Yeah, I like how that last convo kind of segued into that. But last week's was pretty fun. Just
I
like trying to like figure out like what we like, what we don't like, and like what useless exercises. But I think it's good to go dive a little deeper into specific um mechanics and specific exercises that we use and things that we don't find very effective and help other people out.
for sure. And then it ended up just literally creating our next episode where we just started talking about back training. But I was like, we should hold on to this because this is literally going to be like another episode right now. So I was like,
Yeah.
all right, that just springboarded another topic to kind of build upon.
Exactly. I mean, how should we really start? I guess like how how do you program back training? I guess that's a good start.
So there's two ways I'm gonna approach that.
Awesome.
There's the way that I approach back training for clients, and there's ways that I'm currently going on my own back training.
Uh,
So I'll start with clients. So with me, I really prioritize rowing motions, and I prioritize carries for posture.
okay.
I also do a lot of rear shoulder work.
Okay.
So I usually actually start off with like the shoulder mobility and like the rear shoulder stuff. Most general population people come in with postural issues. Shoulders rounded, just typical because of like how most people's work life is. So even a part of the assessment, like scapular rhythm is something that I work on. Like I'll hands on the wall or hands on the knees, and I'll just like practice. I'll just show someone how to elevate and depress their shoulder blades. I'll show somebody how to protract and retract. And if that looks good, I'll just move that into more progressive ways of shoulder retraction to where maybe they're doing like a push-up plus where they're just in push-up position, moving only their scapula without their elbows. Like I always want to teach someone how to use a joint individually and then bring it together later
Mm,
on into a movement. So, and I'll explain that to them as they're doing it. It's like, okay, we do scapular retraction for our rowing movements and always highlight push-ups because that's a popular exercise that a lot of people understand. I don't let anyone do a push-up until I know that they can control their scapula without their elbows moving. It's usually a pretty quick fix, being that I just know how to coach it well today. And then that moves into a lot of how we get into row work. Like I'm not even gonna have someone row until they know how to control their scapula first without elbows moving. And then I usually take those patterns and move into band pull aparts. Band pull aparts are probably one of my most like utilized exercises. Band pull aparts, face pulls I enjoy too.
yeah.
Band pull aparts are just one of those bang for your buck exercises, and it's also an easy feel. It's one of those movements that is easy for someone to grasp, and it covers a lot of groundwork for me to do with someone in terms of like um midline stability and how to draw your ribs down and make sure you're not overextending. So I actually get to like cue a lot of things into like the band pull apart, and then from there I'll move on to more like rowing exercises. I don't start off with bent over rows. That's something I aim to progress someone to. So I'll try to find pretty row friendly exercises, whether that's chest supported or like single arm supported on the bench, wide stance, however that looks. Inverted rows, um, modified things of that nature. So just to bring it all in conclusion for how I approach back training is a lot of rear shoulder work, a lot of posture work, and then I emphasize a lot of horizontal rowing patterns based off of where that person's level is. So I'll try to usually find some type of row variation that's easy on the spine, but is going to get a lot of bang for buck on back activation.
Nice. Can you explain this your scapular like testing and like how you progress regress into doing that? Because I know it's simplistic for us, but I think a better kind of overall explanation can kind of help.
Yeah, for sure. So most people don't know how to individually move their scapula in terms of like I'm showing here, this is retraction, this is protraction. A lot of times what I'll see is when I tell someone to pull their shoulders back, they'll extend and they'll even like move their elbows. So they really don't know how to individualize their joint. There was a client that I had a while back that had a lot of bicep tendonitis. That was literally just from him training like an asshole. Wasn't like nothing crazy happened. He
Yeah.
just prioritized bicep curls so much, and his posture was so shitty. And overall, over time, his elbows just really started to bother him. So when I had looked at him, I was like, we need to train your back because we actually need to take you away from bicep work because your shoulder's not even in proper position to get the most out of the bicep work anyway, because you're compromising your posture. And that's why, excuse me, that's why your shoulders are starting to bother you too. So all of our back work, literally for 2 to 3 months, was just like cable work, but only protraction and retraction. And literally his back got stronger. So I teach people the importance of getting good rhythm in your scapula and knowing how to individualize that joint. And then we bring in pulling your elbows back and getting that extra range of motion that would make your full upper body stronger. So that can be as simple as put your hands on the wall, pull your chest towards the wall, push your chest away from the wall with your elbows straight. If that looks good, maybe I'll get them in like a kneeling push-up position, and then I'll have them do the same thing, protract, retract. If that looks comfortable, I'll put them in like a plank position, protract and retract from there. And now I'll cue to have the hips lined up with the shoulders and make sure your rib cage is down, core is engaged. So now you know that to do a good push-up, this portion has to happen first. So we're not compromising our elbows or our wrists or definitely the shoulders, which is the main thing going into a push-up if you're not controlling your scapula right.
So yeah, I think about things like that, and I think about like the correct movement of people's shoulder blades, because I mean that's part of our job and that's a very upper body like evident thing. But I don't break it down as detailed as you do. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's very important. Like I feel like I need to start regressing people because now I'm starting to see things that I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
But I think it's very interesting how you break it down into like, you're not even gonna do this shit until you do this. And I think obviously I'm the same way as you. Is like you can't do X until you do A, B, and C and D before you can touch this stuff. But even as simple as moving your shoulder blades is taken for granted. And that's kind of like what I like the thing I keep hearing is that I mean it's true. I see it all the time. People can't really like ever like move their shoulder blade. I'm like squeeze your shoulder blades together and they're doing all the XX stuff. They're opening up their ribs, they're doing X, Y, and Z with everything. And I feel like people don't understand that if you can't move your shoulder blades right, it's really hard to get a good back activation going on. And it's also very bad for your fucking elbows, your fucking shoulders in general. If you can't move freely, that's a lot of problem with like people. I mean, just nowadays, like with their hunched over position, very bad posture. And being able to fix that comes from like being able to freely move their shoulder blades. It's unsticking their shoulder blades.
Yeah.
It's
And
literally
sometimes people like shrug their shoulders just to
or the
pull.
shrug. Yeah, that's crazy to me too. It's like they can't think about back, they think about up. And that's
Yeah.
too, yeah. They can't conceptualize how to move their shoulders correctly. And
Yeah.
that's the scary part when like you don't have a concept of how your body should move. And that's crazy when like you could like it's like skipping. It's like you lose it. Like people don't understand like if you don't use it or you don't actually move it freely or whatever like that, or you have other issues, you lose it. Like it's have you like do you make people skip? It's like randomly, just like, hey, like I'll just go do a skip. Have you ever seen a grown man not skip in so long that it's like they have no concept of how to like bring their knee up, use their hand. Like they can't skip. That's fucking hilarious to me. But
It's funny you brought that up because like lately I've been just doing more base level, like let's say football warm-up drills with people
yeah,
just to like work on little things of that, like little plyometric stuff like bunny hops or
yeah.
lateral shuffles or A skips, C skips to work on like that coordination and just find new ways to like spice up warm-ups for people. And I'm like, damn, this little shit is so necessary for people.
Oh my God. The coordination, the proprioception,
Yeah.
like understanding how to move like fluidly. Like it's crazy that like if you don't actually like do these little drills, and they don't need to be super like football oriented or just
Mm-hmm.
whatever, just like natural movements, it's just like people fucking lose it. Like I saw a grown man, I saw a video of a grown man skip, and like I thought he had a seizure. Like that's how bad it was. Like that's how bad it was. But it's I'm getting a little too far off of the topic. But again, like being able to freely move your shoulder blades is a lost art because we're not able to, we don't do it enough because we're sitting hunched over. But that was very interesting the way that you broke it up, like the way that you do, but even before you start rowing. I don't do that. And that's kind of like my segue into what I do is I I kind of I try train and coach kind of the same way. I do believe like horizontal pulling is more vital than it is vertical pulling, but I do like the
I do too, actually.
pulling up. I do like pulling up a lot, especially for my clients to like really get that scapular moving and being in the dead position. I like to add dead hangs into my client's position. It might be very tough on the joints, but I think being able to hang is a necessary thing that people need to do. Being able to move their shoulders freely. So I think a lot of coaches have this tendency to keep their shoulder blades back as they're rowing. But I really am a big fan of letting them round and really fully moving and being okay in that position and really retracting. So I do understand the concept of the way that you're teaching it, but I teach it in a way that still gets them to do the rowing motion and all that stuff. And then try to let them understand that, all right, your shoulder needs to move this way. Shoulder needs to move that way. Think about pulling a little bit lower and stuff like that. So I'm a little bit more detail oriented on the movement during the process of the exercise instead of like breaking it up so much. But I do understand the concepts.
See, for me, it just helps coach that portion better.
Later.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Make
that's why I break it down. And it's
yeah.
funny because like as coaches, you kind of figure out your rhythm as you do it for so many years.
Yeah.
But one thing for me was it was harder for me to coach scapular rhythm going into a row for certain people to where I was like, huh, what if I just knock it off as an individual thing first in the assessment?
Yeah.
Because then it's just easier for me to break it down to people when I get to this portion or to this progression of the movement. So that's just been my system over like the past 2 years.
Yeah. And it's a great system. I just never thought about it like that. I think for me, it's always been easier to teach it as we're going along because then I can, do you feel that? Do you feel that? Move this way. I'm a big fan of saying making your shoulders disappear. And even though like they all maybe
Right.
open the ribs, like making their shoulders disappear, they automatically have to retract their shoulder blades. Or a lot of times the reason why they're not able to move their shoulder blades is because their hand position of where they're rowing is in the wrong place. They row super high and they roll their shoulders forward instead of rowing a little bit lower into the rib cage, and automatically that opens up. So like it's quick tweaks. But I do really like to do like banded rows. So I don't have any machines in my gym. I do like to do banded rows where if like my clients are really like what is it?
Protract,
Retracting, pretracting. I don't know the right.
rounding for it.
Yeah, just rounding and then coming back. But just to like open that up. I'm a big fan of like chest supported rows. I'm a big fan of dead stop rows because I feel like a lot of people like rush their just regular like dumbbell row position. So I've been loving that. I've been loving gorilla rows lately.
I was
I,
gonna say I've been seeing you talk about those a lot.
I love gorilla rows lately. I love the emphasis in the position of the post chain, but also like the little rotation and being okay rotating as you row, but not overemphasizing the row. Again, I like the dead stop position, so like I do like the gorilla rows for that. It's a little bit, if I do like doing them both at the same time, just a kind of pendulum version of a gorilla row. But really emphasizing like the hamstring strengthening portion of it. Big obviously pull-up person. I love doing pull-ups. I love doing eccentric pull-ups. I love doing dead hangs. Just to really stretch out the lats and really get the shoulder blade moving in the correct position. What other row variations do
Are
I
you
like?
doing your dead hangs with their shoulders retracted back, or
No,
do
I'm
you?
just like I'm literally dead. Like I don't there's no tension in my arms. And I'll hold that position for like 2 seconds or something like that. It's
Yeah,
just I feel like you get the most. I think what people don't understand, you get the most a majority of exercises, especially like your back, from that eccentric portion, the lengthening portion of the movement. So a lot of people that you see in the gym, or like especially like bodybuilders or just douchebags, they'll shorten the range of motion and only do a partial, when like that shoulder rounding or that shoulder really moving and coming back in that full range of motion is when you're going to get the hypertrophy you want, the size you want. I'm not a really big fan of like wide grip pull-ups just because it doesn't stack into your shoulders. It gives me shoulder shit, so I don't like any of my clients doing it. Neutral grip pull-ups are king to me. I will do chin-ups every now and then just for shits and gigs. But I am a big neutral grip only person just because I have horrible shoulders in general with both of my labrums torn. And that's about it. I don't really like I like inverted rows, obviously.
you
Inverted
bring
rows.
up carries. I know you do carries a lot.
Yeah, I do carries a lot. I don't think so. That's I separate the line of back training from like actual back exercises, and then carries are just my carry section. So obviously carries do a lot for your back, your traps, your position, your posture. I
Yeah,
just don't consider them back exercises.
got it. That makes sense.
Yeah. I just carry those are carries, fucking carry that shit from left to right. But those are just not back exercises to me, even though they are back. Um, um, they help the back out, whatever like that. I said words are hard right now. I'm still recovering from this weekend.
Yeah. So for my own training, I'll bring it back to me a little bit. From years of powerlifting, I just did a lot of like heavy bent over rows, pendulum rows, and like dumbbell rows.
Yeah.
That was literally like kind of all I focused on for back training, outside of like just having good posture when I deadlift and stuff, and let like my upper back get stronger from those things. And like it built a really big, strong, thick back, which was good. But over the years, I definitely suffered in my thoracic rotation, and I did a shit ton of pull-ups too.
Okay.
Shit ton of pull-ups. Currently I don't even do pull-ups right now. I'm having like a little weird lat issue, so like it just kind of bothers me when I do pull-ups. So I don't even like add them into my training. Um, so my back work a lot of today looks like heavy carry work,
Mhm.
and I do a lot of thoracic rotation work.
Nice.
That's kind of where I've been at with it. And a lot of the heavy kettlebell work that I do has been helping my upper back get strong.
Nice.
So like today I do like I've been playing with the sandbags more. I like the gorilla rows too. And I'll oftentimes like superset those with like a double kettlebell clean. And I'll do those like pretty heavy. And the double rack position for kettlebells really challenges your core and your upper
Oh,
back like no
oh,
other.
that was the next thing I was going to bring up. It's just that it's just so undervalued of that front rack position, especially with the kettlebells, of like how much tension you got to hold in like your traps, your upper back, everything. So that's also a fucking great one. And I like that you brought up thoracic rotation as a part of back exercises, because I feel like that goes like unnoticed. And I do a lot of like, I don't have a lot of rotation in my program per se. I do a lot anti-rotation, but
Mhm.
I do a lot of mobility drills that help with my rotation. So I'll strengthen through it. But I do like to sprinkle like TRX rows with rotations. I'll do band pull apart, rotate. I'll do like band rotations with the bands.
I need to do that one from you. I see you do
That
that
was a
one.
good that's a good one. And pulling through, I like that one especially. Just because like you're pulling through rotation instead of like a row where you're rotating and just rotating back up in one direction. So I like that one. Um, but yeah, I don't have a lot of rotation in it because I feel like a lot of the issues with people is that they lack the mobility to even really feel the rotational exercises.
Mhm.
So my main priority with them is to open them up enough to have the ability to be mobile enough to rotate. So you see a lot of people that can't even like open up, like turn
Yeah.
all the way to their side or just be at a 180-degree angle. So that's more important to me, even though strengthening that range of motion will help their mobility. It's just not priority to me per se.
Yeah, for me, I've been actually making it a priority, and that's probably just because of the way I've been doing my back training for so many years. So, being like I'm in this phase of doing like a lot of like loaded quote unquote mobility work, because all strength training work is mobility work to me. But so like I've been doing like heavy kettlebell windmills and stuff like
Ooh,
that.
nice. Yeah.
Like typically when we think of windmills, we think like high repetition. So like my brain goes to what happens when I get that same exact range of motion, but I challenge it like with heavy reps, sets of 3, sets of 5, or whatever the case are. I'm adding in like a pause at the bottom and slowly coming up, little things like that to try to build that skill in me a little bit differently. Another one that I play around with is just like a lot of rotational cleans, just like really emphasizing that rotation on the clean. I've been doing more like spinal flexion training for myself.
Okay. Explain
So
that.
yeah, like
Okay.
Zerchers like sandbag deadlifts or sandbag flips, things
Mhm.
that are actually forcing my spine to round and flexion and then extend as well. So I think like a lot of the traditional back work, because I've been training for like 15 plus years. Um so in my like I have a good base of just back strength. So now at this phase that I'm at, it's like, okay, let me explore different moves, different patterns, and different mobilities of how my actual spine can move with more rotation, more flexion, more extension, and see how that can help promote mobility or just even more like spine health over time.
Nice.
That's not something that I would have someone do right off the bat though, which is why I said like for my clients training, this literally is just something that I'm just doing with myself right now. Like so my client training, a lot of that is just opening, a lot of the mobility work there, traditional row work, um, pull-up work, or any type of modified pull-up work
Yeah.
to to strengthen up the lats and things of that nature. But yeah, for me, it's like I would say probably over the past like 6 months or so, this is like things that I've been playing around with, and I do feel like my rotation is getting better. It's just still a little new right now, so we'll
Yeah.
see how like the next 6 months play out for me.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where like it's because you've been trained. I mean, building the base helps out a lot. And I think just for especially our clients, like building a base of strength through different ranges of motion is important. But I think also sprinkling in that like a windmill here,
Mhm.
arm bar there, um
That's
uh
another thing I do. Yep.
all that on all these different kind of things will really help out no matter what. And just give them a context of understanding how to rotate and how to handle load while rotating is super important.
For
Um
sure.
but yeah, I think I mean you're a little different than me, in the thing of like you were only doing because you were powerlifting so long, you were deadlifting, you were bent over rowing, pendulum rowing, and then dumbbell
Mhm.
rowing and doing a shit ton of pull-ups. Um, I was the douchebag, so I did a little bit of everything. But I never really like had like I needed to do X, Y, and Z, you know what I mean, to get stronger. I just did everything. But like I fell in love with certain exercises. Um, but here's a question, and I think this is something that people need to hear. do you consider, well, actually, you know what we haven't talked about at all before I get into that? We haven't talked about low back exercises,
That was coming.
specific low back exercises that can help, especially like with everything else. And again, like when you do your low back exercises, especially like the carries transfer over to a low back exercises, especially like front rack, sandbag, searchers. I mean, all of them do, honestly, to be honest with you. But I'm a really big fan of the reverse hyper. Huge fucking fan of reverse hyper. If I open a brick and mortar, that would be, other than buying a barbell, that would be the first thing I buy. I'll buy reverse hyper. It cured whatever back pain I had when I was powerlifting. Cured it. Like I do not struggle like a lick with low back pain because of that.
Well, that's the story of how the machine was created in the first place.
Exactly. I know. That's exactly how Louis Sims did. He
That's the
fucking
story.
fixed his low back just with the reverse hyper. So I will use it, and I would use it for any client that has low back pain. It's literally a lifesaver. That's like literally the only targeted low back exercise I necessarily do. I mean, doing a whole bunch of fucking single leg. I mean, doing glute ham raises. I mean, can somewhat do your low back, especially if you load it. Hip extension, even though you shouldn't feel your low back, even though you're doing a lot of glute work, it still strengthens up your low back. I mean, ab exercises do a whole bunch for your low back. But I'm more of a, I think at this time, like doing like back extensions and doing like all the extra stuff, I don't think is necessarily needed. Because a lot of the times, like doing that specific, like targeted low back exercise, especially like for, I mean, back extensions have their place. I'm not saying they're completely useless, but having a better base of actually like being able to, especially not overextend in that position, which is fucking horrible for you. You don't need that shit. I don't think you need it back extensions, but I'm a big fan of reverse hypers, carries, and targeted planks specifically for low back stuff and hip extensions. That's my thing.
For my low back training, we don't have a reverse hyper at my gym. So that's we have the glute ham raise though.
That works. Yeah.
So I do with my clients back extensions, but I don't do it how most people do back extensions.
Okay.
I treat back extensions like a hinge exercise when I'm doing it with my clients.
Okay.
So like my cueing for them is, this is a hamstring and glute focused exercise, and your lower back is just kind of like your stabilizer there. So I treat them like, I'm like, treat this like how you would treat an RDO.
Yeah.
So when they go down, I'm like, this is you stretching your posterior chain, and then I want you to push your hips and your quads into the pad to squeeze your hamstrings and glutes to lock you out right at like that horizontal point.
Yeah.
So my clients actually feel a lot of hamstrings and glutes, opposed to like people that just kind of like overarch and like throws themselves up and just like use their lower back to
Back
pick.
pump. Yeah, just like
Yeah,
that back pump. Yeah. I was
yeah. That's often, like I'll tell people, I'm like, if you are directly training your lower back, then that's not wrong. But I was like, I oftentimes don't coach that way just because it's like, I just know most people to just predominantly use their lower back and think that they don't need to use their lower back in.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of lower back training comes into like, even if you deadlift with the most proper form, your lower back is still active. Like it's impossible not to be, from your RDLs, from your carries. I do a lot of Chinese planks.
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah, I haven't tried those yet. I've seen you do those a
Oh,
lot.
you would love the Chinese. That shit has like your name written all over it, dude.
I'll give it I'll give it a try tomorrow. I have accessory work tomorrow. I'll give it a try.
For people who don't know what a Chinese plank is, it's you can either use like 2 benches or 2 chairs, whatever the case. Your rear shoulders and upper back and your head is supported on one end, and on the other end, your feet is supported. So everything in between, like your hamstrings, your glutes, and your low back, is suspended in the air, and you have to engage to hold a straight position. So I use that work as a lot of posterior chain endurance, because even when you having like good posture doing certain exercises, sometimes people's lower back is just so weak and fatigued that it just like can tire out.
Mhm.
So I use that, or even sometimes a feet elevated hamstring bridge, which is your back is laying on the floor and you elevate your feet on a bench or a chair, and then you lift your hips off the ground and just hold it.
Yeah.
But when I do Chinese planks, I do this for like pretty long duration. So it was funny. I had somebody try it for the first time the other day, and they were on it for like 10 seconds, and they were like, "Am I doing this right? This feels easy." I'm like, "Oh, 10 seconds is nothing." I'm like, "We do this shit for like 3 minutes at the least."
Jesus, fuck
Yeah,
you.
I hold that shit for a long time, dude. So on average, I try to get my clients to hold for like 5 minutes comfortably.
Are you doing this for sets, or you're doing this like kind of like that's what that's what
So sometimes I'll have them like break it up. It'll be like 3 sets of 1 minute, 2 rounds of a minute 30, give or take, 1 round of 3 minutes. But primarily, I'm literally just trying to get you to hold 1 set longer.
okay.
So my goal is like, all right, if you're knocking out sets of 130 or 2 minutes or whatever like that, that's pretty good. But we're gonna try to push you to hold 3 minutes, 5 minutes comfortably. The longest I had somebody hold it was probably like 6.5.
Okay.
The gold standard with that is like 10 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Like I learned that exercise in one of my internship years ago, where it was like, yeah, we would just sit in this position. I mean, he was like, when I learned this, he was like, the guy that was teaching me, it was like, all right, I'll see you in 10 minutes. So he just left him there.
Jesus
So
Christ.
I have that same mindset with that. And honestly, like a lot of people, and I guess that would be my glute ham raise. I mean, my reverse hyper in this extent for me. Cause like I've literally had a lot of people said since I've been doing Chinese planks, my back has been feeling so much better.
That's awesome.
So your hamstring and glutes are primarily what you want to feel, but your lower, it's like over time, like your lower back is going to be active. So they all work together. Your whole posterior chain is firing up to hold you. And you don't want your hips to drop below your shoulders. You literally want to hold yourself in a straight line.
Yeah. I think this is I'm gonna give it a try, but I think this is a great time to kind of mention like I like I like the fact that we're getting to low back stuff because I feel like people freak out whenever they feel their low back. But I think you need to understand that it's natural for a lot of movements to do it. And I think the problem is that when you're deadlifting, if you only feel your low back, you're doing something wrong. And I think like something like the Chinese plank or something like the glute ham raise is a great teacher because not only do they feel their low backs, but they feel their glutes and their hamstrings in those positions. And that's the main priority of doing certain movements like a deadlift. I mean, obviously not a squat so much specifically targeting the hamstrings and your glutes or whatever like that, but feeling that the difference between engaging those muscles and feeling the low back, which again, it doesn't necessarily need to be hammered away to be stronger. It needs to be build endurance. It needs to build strength.
For
But
sure.
um, but I think people have this fear of like feeling their low backs that stop them from progressing because they hear all these stories or they hurt their low backs again. But they need to people need to understand that it is okay to feel your low back.
For sure.
It's
It
okay.
just can't be the main mover in things that
Ex-
you're doing.
Exactly. It cannot be the main issue or the main part is the main thing that you feel in your deadlifts, your squats,
Yeah.
and all that extra stuff. If that's the only thing you feel, you're doing something wrong. But if you feel your glutes, your fucking hamstrings, you feel your quads, you feel this, and those are getting fucking burned and those are getting priority of like what's going on, it's okay. This just means that your low back, I don't think weak is the right word. I don't think your core is weak. I think you need to work on the endurance. I need to think you need to build strength. Okay. Just using the mindset of like you have a weak low back and a weak core is the reason why you can't do stuff is I think that's 100% bullshit because a lot of times there's different factors that come into play. But yes, focusing on your low back and understanding the difference between pain and tension is also very important. I think that's the main a thing that people have. It's like, oh my, I feel my low back. Calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
is it causing you pain? No, I just feel it. Okay, cool. Because we're deadlifting. So shut the fuck up. Okay. Do you feel your ass? Yes. Do you feel your hamstrings? Yes. If you're doing it right, pick up the weight. It's fine. If I don't like it, if you're in front of a coach and you tell them this and they automatically tell you like, oh, okay, then it's a problem, or they were looking at you and they said nothing, then you were doing it fine. You know what I mean? it's cool to let us know, but at the same time, if it's not causing you pain or if you feel these other things, this is normal.
Yeah,
That's all.
it's definitely a misconception that people have. It's just, especially when you're moving certain weights, dude. Like you see me swinging heavy kettlebells. Like my glutes and hamstrings are on fire, but my back is active too. It's impossible for my back not to be working when I'm swinging a 124-pound kettlebell or a 200-pound kettlebell. Like you need everything to help you when you're moving somebody's weights. Like it's just literally impossible.
Yeah, especially that they're called compound movements. You're
Yeah.
using everything. It's not like we're doing direct work. We're doing direct. If we're doing calf raises and you feel your low back, you need to go to the hospital immediately. That's fucked up. Like you can go home somewhere else. But like if you're feeling your low back, and especially when you have a belt on, like even if you have a belt, like there are times where I used to deadlift like fucking straight bar deadlift, like over 400 pounds, and I'll still feel a fucking my low back when I'm deadlifting with a belt on. I mean, just because it's the fucking it's part of the movement. You know what I mean? But I am feeling my glutes, my hamstrings. So it's it's cool to see people understand that.
Yeah, it's important for you to see the posture of your exercises when you're doing it too. You
Yes.
know, like that's the first thing I'm gonna look for when someone's getting in deadlift position is like, are you in proper alignment? If you're in proper alignment, then at this point it's literally just building up the strength and the work capacity for you to do whatever the movement is at this point. But if I see you're lifting and you're compromising when you lift, then I'm gonna be like, okay, like you're actually using your low back to pull this, and this is where the issue is becoming.
And it's one of those things where like we talked about it before, proper form isn't proper form, it's your form. Like it doesn't have to be exact. Or is our job as coaches to understand what good looks like for you and checking all the boxes and what bad looks like for you. But we kind of went fucking a little left. But let's talk about exercises that you wouldn't use or you find overrated for back training.
All right. So overvalued. I don't want to use this as an exercise for back, but some people view it as back exercise, and I think deadlifting. There's
Still,
some people who like look at it as like a back exercise, where I do look at it as a compound exercise, and I also look at it as a primarily a push exercise. But and the only reason I say I think it's overvalued just in terms of using it to build up your back strength.
yeah. I
And I'm
think
speaking of a traditional deadlift here too, like a
yeah,
traditional conventional deadlift.
I wanted to see where your head at was that was going to be another question. It's like, do you consider uh barbell deadlift like an actual back exercise?
Never. No, I just look at the back as stabilizers to let your legs do what they're supposed to do in a deadlift. And I guess that kind of goes in of one of the misconceptions that I have for like back training is like using deadlift as a back exercise. No, it's a full body compound exercise. But just like how anything else where I can, if that's the case, then I can look at a heavy goblet squat as a back exercise.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I get a lot of my back work today is from these things, but they're just acting as my stabilizers. They're not individually strengthening my back. So I think it's I don't think you should use deadlifts as like a way to focus on your back, but it can help in the long grand scheme of things of having posture and maintaining tension to build upper back and like lower back support. But there's way more things that you can be doing to target just building individual like scapular strength. So when I'm looking at building back strength, I'm looking at full protraction, full retraction exercises. And that's why I even like what you said about what your back training earlier. Like you really emphasize the protraction.
Yeah.
You emphasize the retraction, where I think there's some people when they do like back training is they don't emphasize the protraction enough, and they're actually losing like 3 to 4 inches of range of motion just from not doing that.
Mhm.
And that can build so much size in your back, so much strength in your back, more range in your back. So you have more of a capable spine.
Yeah. And and it's one of those things where I think it freaks people out because they're rounding their back. They're like, oh, I'm gonna fuck up my back. But like this is a natural movement. It's the
Yeah.
protraction and the retraction.
I
And
teach that for push-ups too.
yeah, I do those for push-ups too. I mean, if I'm doing them fucking correctly and not fucking
Yeah,
rushing, but I'll make sure I'll push through the ground. I'll come back down. I'll retract. But yeah, I teach that. I do teach that. I do teach that protraction, as at the very top and like really forcing that. Like I kind of like what I'll do is I'll grab somebody's shirt. I'll think about pull from here,
Oh
I'll
shit, I like that.
go like that, and just pull from that spot right there, and they'll kind of retract without even thinking about it. But yeah, I think that's super undervalued, and I do agree with you. A common misconception is like bodybuilders will put like fucking deadlifts on their back day, which I never understood anyway. But, like I don't get that. Just because I would feel my low back just because I deadlifted like an asshole. Um, but I was just like, bro, like I feel like this is just leg shit. But yeah, I feel the same way. But I
That's
kind
kind
of
of justify with a rack deadlift sometimes though. But
you
I
said
kind of look at that as lockout strength.
yeah, I feel like that's like I think again, like it's there's nothing wrong with like the conventional deadlift for like your upper back. I think like people who have big upper backs like fucking do fucking amazing fucking have amazing fucking deadlifts, but that's mainly part because of like the exercises that they do,
Exactly.
not the fucking deadlift itself. So people need to
Like
understand it
you have to have a big, strong upper back to have a big deadlift.
100%. You have to have a big back to have a big bench. You have to have a big back to do a whole bunch of fucking shit. So like I think back is I mean not undervalued because everybody needs to get, but like it's people don't understand how important it is for the other main movements and a lot of other movements that you need just because it's a big stabilizer. That's the majority of where you're fucking
Oh yeah, back training for my community and myself is extremely important. I'm
I'm
like,
a
if you have a strong back, you can damn near do almost anything in the gym.
anything. I'm a bigger I prioritize post chain more than anything. Even
Yeah.
though I like that's part back. I think post chain as like low back to hamstrings. Like I prioritize that more than anything because I have a whole bunch of people that have low back issues. But
Hmm.
like that's the next fucking thing up to me is fucking upper back training. That's all. I fucking love it. It's my favorite thing to fucking do, and I think it's super vital, especially for people that sit behind desks all day.
For
But,
sure.
but anyway, okay, let's go into my um overvalued or whatever kind of thing. And we talked about it before. I think barbell rows are just like overvalued. I think they I think that in the inhibiting factor, the limiting factor that people have with bent over rows is the fact that their low back gives first because they're holding the heavy ass weight in front of them and they're holding it in the bad position. And it's the same thing. Like if you have weak hamstrings and you're trying to be in the RDL position in row 225, your low back's going to give out real quick. So it's also like people do it fucked up. They bounce, they fucking sit their chest up too high, they row too high, they row too low, or they don't row and protract their shoulders. So like there is there is a place for bent over rows. I'm not saying there isn't a place for bent over rows. I think people overvalue them too much when you can be doing something like a chest supported row and really focusing on that protraction, retraction, and not using any momentum and really getting that row in and focusing on that mid back. But I think if you were to, I like the barbell. I want to stick to rows. Pendlay rows have so much more value than bent over rows in my eyes, mainly because you start from a dead position, you start from a more hinged position because the bar is obviously lower, and you have to remain aligned the entire time. If you fucking lift up your chest and you do a pendlay row, then you might as well just do a bent over row.
For
But
sure.
because you're in a hinged over position, okay, it only really focuses on your mid back. And because you're not holding the weight, there's no limiting factor in your low back other than your hamstrings just being super tight or super weak in that position. So I think bent over rows are just way too fucking overvalued in my eyes. I think if you were to change something, I would change it to pendlay rows. or I would change it immediately to chest supported rows, which are honestly my favorite upper back exercise of all time. This is me.
So I love that. So the bent over row to me, I don't know if I would use the word overvalued for it, but I feel like it's overutilized.
Fair.
So I have the bent over row as one of those like advanced exercises that takes time for someone to get to.
Yeah.
So I kind of treat it like I you know how you have like your big three, bench, squat, deadlift, whatever, blah blah blah. I have if I were to change the big three, or actually no, I just kind of have like almost like a big four or like a big five. Bench over row makes that for me in terms of barbell exercises because I don't want to act like
Oh,
it's
as far as the big three of the big three
yeah,
that we're talking about. Ah,
that's
okay.
how I
That
view
makes sense.
barbell row.
I think that makes sense. I think it's a very difficult exercise for people to use, but you have like rookies using them. You have noobs using them. And
Exactly.
they're putting themselves in bad position. I mean, I see it all the time. Like I put bent over rows in the program in the gym, and I'm like, holy shit! Like you know how to hinge, like, but you're still doing it fucked up. You don't like it's a it's a weird exercise to really get that really has a lot of technique to it, and you have to have a shit ton of posturing strength to actually do correctly. So yeah, I do see. I mean, that's a good way to kind of think about it, honestly, as a big as that far advance of a movement.
That's
Yeah,
the way I approach it, which is why I have it as a high value exercise for me. Is also the reason why I don't have a lot of people do it. You know, so for me, it's like if I get you to the point of doing a bent over row, you are leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of people, or just like ahead in your um fitness journey with your body because you can perform this with correct form and good activation.
yeah,
So it's like that just kind of goes into how I approach training with clients and just my whole filtering process, like from the scapular retraction, X, Y, and Z, and teaching people good hinges. Like nobody does a bent over row with me until they have a strong RDO.
yeah,
So like for me, like that's almost like a prerequisite. So I
yeah,
need to know that you can do pretty good RDLs because at that point, I'm just like, oh, the bottom of the position is RDL. Now I just need you to pull your shoulders back. And usually they pick it up right there. Because before, like I used to just being that I love the bent over row exercise so much and I know how much benefit it can give someone, I would just throw people into the bent over row, and I was just like, this never looks the way that I plan it to look.
yeah,
And I'm like, I would almost like cringe like seeing people in those positions because it was almost like their bodies would just crumble. Like
yeah,
they would just stand up straight and then like just fold into like a ball and then just start grabbing a bar. I'm like, no, 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 this has to stop.
yeah.
So for
Yeah,
me,
I'm not allowed this madness.
no, I cannot have that. I don't want anybody to walk by and think like I'm condoning this type of activity. That just
I
like
get it, bro. Trust me. I get it. There's some shit I just I saw once. I was like, we're never doing this shit again.
yeah. So I just learned to like really value that exercise and hold that exercise to such a high regard that I almost have like a screening process to even reach that exercise. Like when I first start training with people, like that's not even in your training probably for like the first couple months to be honest. Unless I really, really see that you have a solid hip hinge and you have good shoulder retraction, then I can like have the confidence be like, okay, I think we can pull this off. But that's how I view the bent over row. And I have people prioritize that more than I even have barbell bench. And if you listen to the podcast and you kind of know like I'm not really the biggest barbell bench fan.
Mhm.
Um so I actually work to progress someone into a row way quicker than I try to get someone to bench press.
Yeah,
Bench pressing for the average client that I work with, it doesn't even exist. Like we'll do a lot more dumbbell work and we prioritize the shit out of push-ups.
yeah,
Unless someone really has like a benching dream or they do powerlifting, which isn't most people coming to me. So I really take the bench press out because it's typically such an ego driven exercise. And I'm like, there's so many better things that we could be doing to improve your fitness besides me feeding your ego. So I really prioritize RDLs. I want to get people strong in RDLs, and then usually from good RDLs and just understanding good scapular rhythm. And by that time, too, if I have someone trying to bent over row, chances are they're doing some type of push-up progression with me or some type of push-up modification. So it's just a matter of me just putting all these little pieces that they already know, good RDL strains, good hip hinge, good scapular rhythm. At that point, it's just a matter of like, okay, all these things that you did, here's an exercise that combines all of them.
Yeah.
And then they usually pick it up like right there. So actually, by the time I do the bent over row with someone, it's kind of already coached.
Yeah.
And then I just like add another component to them, and now they got a new exercise for them.
I like this. I like this view of it. 'Cause I mean, just to think about it as like a super advanced movement, which I knew it was a super advanced movement, but putting it on almost a category of fucking the big three, which it
Yeah.
is like a super fucking it's like one of those like sneaky complicated movements. Like you really don't think about it just because you see everybody else do it in the gym, but to actually be like do it correctly and do it right, do it without fucking fatiguing your low back, do it while still like in the perfect position without it fucking tearing out your low back. Yeah, I see it.
And that's why I look at it that way, because it's like you're literally maintaining that position during the whole set.
Yeah.
So that's a lot on your core, that's a lot on your posture, that's a lot on your posterior chain.
Yeah.
So to hold that with integrity and move weight, when people can do that under my watch, I'm like, damn, we got something. Like
Yeah.
that's a really, really, really big sign. So I take pride in getting people to comfortably do a bent over row. Like I use that exercise to measure for me if someone has good hinge strength and if someone has good postural integrity. I'm like, if they can do that, I'm like, oh shit, we're good. We're money.
Okay. I like your view. I like your view on it. I really,
And
really
I
do.
make them do like pauses and like dead stops at the bottom, stuff like that. So it's never like a bang, bang, bang type of thing. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the rows, I'll be like, hold it for 1 second at the top. So you can really force that retraction strength, and you can really feel the spot that you're trying to reach for too. Like that's important for me as well. So most exercises that I even view like this too, like I'm really big on pauses and isometrics and stuff like that. So you're not even doing touch and go rows when we do it either. You're doing a pause row. And
Yeah.
I'll even have you like, sometimes I'll have, depending on the person, I might even have them pause at the bottom just so they can even control that weight in the dead stop position there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a bigger at I mean, top is a priority. I feel like a top, like I don't need to coach at this point. So I really don't even think about it just because everybody does it. But I really coach at the bottom and making sure arms are straight, shoulders
Yeah.
are contracted and all that stuff. Like stop rushing the fucking bottom. The bottom is exactly where you need where you need the most, especially that you need to move those shoulders. But yeah, no. I think one last question before we go. If you had to pick 3 back exercises, and we'll go, I think we pretty much already answered these. Let's go 5, and we'll make it a little harder just because we have to pick 5.
Okay.
5 exercises that you will do forever and you can't take out, like upper, like back exercises only, like low back, shoulder, whatever. 5 exercises. Okay. 5 exercises that you need to do forever and you can never change.
Band pull apart.
Mhm.
That's a necessity, and anybody can do it. So I'm gonna go band pull apart. I'm going to go glute ham raise.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Chinese plank.
Okay.
I'm going to go chest supported row. And this last one is tough. Chest supported row, Chinese plank, band pull apart, glute ham raise, and I guess carry. I don't know if I want to count carry. I don't know if I want to count carry.
Okay.
Put like an asterisk next to the carry. But those 4 are gonna be strong ones for me.
I'm surprised you didn't pick pull up. I'm actually surprised you didn't. But we're
You know
very,
what? That's because I haven't been doing them recently.
that's probably what it is.
Pull up will be my 5.
That's why I'm very
My
surprised. I'm
mind.
very, very surprised you didn't do that. But I
Yeah,
guess it
but
just
that just slipped my
yeah,
mind. It would
yeah,
definitely
it
be.
just slipped your mind. That's why I said. That's why I let you go. All right. So for me, it's actually very similar. Like I love band pull aparts to the death of me. It's my favorite exercise. It's the exercise that everybody does in assessments. We do it every fucking week. It's the best exercise for your shoulders. I find. Okay, personally, like
I like it for abs too.
I didn't actually think about it for abs, to be honest with you.
I look at that as a really big core exercise, actually.
I never thought about it like that, but I can see it. I'm actually gonna start thinking. I'm gonna actually start thinking about that as I'm doing it. But anyway, I'm gonna go very similar list. I'm gonna go sorry, there's a lot of slip band pull apart, glute hammer, not glute hammers, reverse hyper.
Mhm.
I consider glute hammer is more of a post chain than I do a low back exercise. So that's why. Well, I'm gonna say reverse hyper. I'm gonna say pull up, but I'm gonna say neutral grip pull up. If I had to be very, very specific, let's say neutral grip pull up or chin up. And I'll kind of just leave that up in the air for both. Chest supported row. Um, and I had the last one. Uh, I already said pull up. I already said chest supported row. I'm probably gonna bring it. I'm gonna probably say I'm really in love with gorilla rows. I'm gonna say that.
That's a
I
good one.
really like that. Especially like you can kind of like go from there and transition to different exercises. So it's easy. Is I like it for easily flowed exercises. So like you can go like with the kettlebell, you can go like gorilla rows, then you can go double rows, you can swing it, then you can clean it all in that position. So then it's just really easy to get a back pump and still flow and make it into a conditioned exercise. So that's why I like that one specifically.
Question. There's one thing we neither one of us talked about. Are you a big pullover guy?
Like on the bench, pull over this way, or like
Any
pull over
pullover
like this way.
variation?
I am not. I'm not a big pullover guy. I've never. I it fucks with my shoulders. I really don't. I've really never like felt the actual right movement with it. It just was never my exercise. So I had never done it enough to actually fall in love with it, and I just never liked it in general. I do like um pull overs, like banded pull lap pullovers to
Yeah.
warm up.
Okay.
A big fan of warming up with them.
I like
Specifically like engaging the lats and specifically like moving the scapulars. So I or moving the scaps. Just because like people really need that shit. I don't necessarily do it too often, but I do like the lat pullover in that sense. I don't like the bench with the big ass weight pullover just because it fucking tears my shoulders or anything. It's like the same thing as fucking doing like
Yeah, yeah.
this thing. Like it just tears my shoulders apart.
I need to utilize them more in like warm up situations, but that's actually I think that's one of the hardest exercises in the world to coach.
It is. So the way I do it, I wouldn't do the. We're talking about the bandit. Like I put the band on the pull-up bar. I'll grab like a super light band, and I'll tell them to like come down. Like first off, hinge over. You have to be hinged over. So hinged over, arms locked out. Okay, completely. Come down, touch your thighs, and then as you come down, you're separating the band. Like not super far, but
Yeah.
separating the band. Um, so I mean, it's not super complicated, but I really like it. I really like it as a warm up exercise. I really don't, or like I'll put it like if I'm benching, I'll put it as like a um kind
Active
of
recovery type of thing.
it's a recovery type of thing, or as like a activation, just to remind people move the shoulder blades a certain way, or like you have to feel your shoulder blades when you're doing your bench. Also band face pulls are. I didn't talk about that. I love face pulls too, but I know you did.
Yeah, I do like face pulls. I think I'm getting in a phase where I'm utilizing them a little bit more. Sometimes I just go through phases with exercises where I just don't use them as much, and then sometimes I use them a little bit more than others. Band pull apart is just like a pretty consistent exercise in me. That's why I typically go band pull apart over face pull just for me.
Yeah,
But I do know the benefit of face pulls are fucking great, and you can even play around with like how you position your hands to do the face pull.
yeah. I'm a
Um,
big fan. Yeah, I'm a big fan of using banded face pulls and using it as a band pull apart at the same time.
yeah, that's fire.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
super
monster.
sneaky.
Really.
Super sneaky.
That's a monster.
Yeah. So I've always liked face pulls, especially I like rope face pulls just because like it's like one of the earliest things I've ever done.
Yeah,
So it's always been my repertoire.
that was
But
my introduction to probably like rear delt training. Honestly,
yeah,
probably the face pull like that.
probably the face pull. Yeah, I think that's Old Faithful right there. Yeah, I don't. I also enjoy how you go through phases. I like how would I say this? I like training. I love training my way, but I like spicing it up, but like I don't like spicing it up as much as you do. Like I check off boxes,
Yeah,
I train fucking hard, and I'll mix in a few things now and then. But like you go through phases.
I
Like
go real
fuck it,
quick,
I'm just gonna
bro.
go kettlebells out of nowhere. Like I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I would miss my other stuff so much, and I just don't know how you do it. To be
Yeah,
honest.
bro. Like I went, I went without touching a barbell for like a year.
Oh, I could. I mean,
I'm
I
still kind of in that now. Like I went through a phase where I just brought the barbell back for like 2 months, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do it. So I just like just stopped
yeah,
doing it
yeah.
again.
I mean, I don't like. I feel that way with barbell stuff, but like, bro, like, you have a special skill, man. I'm just like, fuck it,
I,
I'm just gonna do whatever the fuck I want now.
um,
And still, so here's the thing: you'll jump to things, and you'll fucking fall in love with it. And I love how like you transition it and you use it to still like help your clients who are still like you'll find new ways. And I
yeah.
think that's the cool thing about it is that you enjoy finding new ways, where I enjoy like perfecting the old ways,
Mm,
like editing the old ways in different ways that are different are cool. Like I like having my skeleton and changing and then perfecting the skeleton enough that I like have variations on top of variations on top of variations instead of like different flows and exercises and stuff like that. If that makes sense.
yeah, that's actually a really good way of how you put that. That's exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, pull-ups is this is probably the longest I've been away from like pull-ups like that. And I got to a point too, and I love that you kept bringing up neutral grip because that's like the only variation I kind of use right now.
It's the only one I use.
Yeah, I chin up grip honestly, maybe just because I was experiencing like shoulder tightness for a little while. I just kind of wasn't doing chin ups for a little bit. I actually kind of hate overhand pull-ups to be
I
honest.
hate
Yeah, I really don't like them for myself.
my
I've been
shoulder.
doing ring pull-ups because ring pull-ups I get to play with rotation.
Yes, I like ring pull-ups. I started using the TRXs. Um, the reason I don't like overhand is because it's the only variation that actually messes with my shoulders. Just because obviously it's immovable, so I'm not able to rotate and it's not rotating, but like I'll actually feel like this shoulder won't move the same way that this one does. And I don't want to be put in that position and be put in that position and be put in that position and then start getting compensation. So like being able to move freely is really beneficial to me, especially like with my labrums being torn and all.
Yeah, inverted rows are the way our squat racks are set up at the gym, they're like attached to the wall.
Okay.
So inverted rows are kind of hard to pull off. But I
Yeah.
think if they weren't, I would utilize them more. But what I've started doing is we have a dip attachment to our squat racks.
Yeah.
So I've been doing like inverted rows off the dip attachment, but like I have to really be on the edge of it so I don't hit my head like close to
Sure.
the squat rack.
This is the actual spot, right?
Yeah.
Do you not do barbell inverted rows?
We can't because it's like your head will be against the wall.
Oh, is that how
That's how
close
close
the
the
spot
squat
rack
rack is
is?
to the
Okay,
wall. That's why I don't do inverted rows.
that's
But
fair.
like I think that's something I would have prioritized a lot more with me not really doing pull-ups right now.
Yeah.
Is doing a lot more inverted row training because like especially over the past 2 years, I'm like, I think that's which is probably why that's not on my top five right now. But it's actually an exercise I really want to do more of. We just don't have the most ideal setup for it at the gym.
I think that would probably be like my sixth would be inverted rows. I fucking love inverted rows, and being a fucking 30-year-old man under 150, inverted rows are super
Yeah.
easy for me. But like I like TRX inverted rows. I like getting the weight vest, like getting after it with a shit ton of reps. putting my legs up on the bench and just fucking like hammering them away.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are honestly one of my. Those are they're up there. They're number 6 for sure.
or even like a foot elevated TRX inverted row, so you can have like a neutral grip. That
That's
would
exactly what that's what I do. That's exactly what I do.
be a monster, dude.
Those are fucking tough. But yeah, man.
Good,
Fucking awesome
good talk.
talk.
Good talk. Um, that perfecting the old ways and exploring new ways of training. We're gonna revisit that conversation one day.
That's a good one because that I think that's the only. I mean, obviously we have our own opinions, but that's
Yeah,
like the real divide that we have. Like the
yeah,
only real divide, like I think we come together with a whole bunch of good ideas. That's the only real divide that we have is like you like exploring, you like going out there exploring. I like staying in fucking perfecting what I have.
yeah. That's even like my personality a little bit too, and also I can even really get into like why I operate that way as well. That can make a really good conversation.
I mean, that could be the next one if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Segue. Yeah.
Hey,
All right,
guys,
bro.
thank you for tuning in to episode 9. We are 9 episodes in with this baby.
Damn, bro.
Another good talk, and we will catch you back next week to episode 10.
Thank you for listening, guys.
God willing, man. Have a good one, bro.
You too, bro.